Yo, my aunt got wasted at a wedding. 4 glasses of champagne, then she switched to bourbon like a pro. And she said 7 words that nuked 3 families from orbit. I'm not exaggerating. By Thursday, my mom was sobbing in a parking lot. By Friday, my uncle had moved into a motel that smells like stale cigarettes and regret. And by Sunday? I found out I'd been living a lie for 26 years. My name's Adeline. Welcome to the Payback Vault, where we tell stories about regular people who finally stopped swallowing the BS and flipped the table. Today's story? It's mine, and I promise you, you won't believe what that DNA test said. Let me take you to Milfield, North Carolina. Population? About 4,000 if you count the dogs. It's the kind of town where everybody knows your name, your business, and exactly which pew you sit in on Sunday morning. I grew up on 3rd Street, past the post office, in a yellow house with a chain-link fence and a mother who reminded me weekly how lucky I was to be chosen. Chosen. That word followed me everywhere like a smell you can't wash out. She said it at the dinner table. She said it in the car. She said it when I asked for new sneakers, and she hit me with a no because my older brother, her biological son, needed baseball cleats first. That was the hierarchy. And I lived under it for 26 years. My brother Tyler? He's 33, 3 years older than me. He got the bigger bedroom. He got the first car. He got the college fund. I got a twin mattress in the room next to the water heater, the one that bangs and rattles all night, and a crystal clear understanding of where I stood. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't neglected. I was fed. I had clothes. I went to school. But there was a line in that house, and Tyler stood on one side, and I stood on the other, and that line was drawn with one word: adopted. When I was 12, I asked my mom about my birth parents. Just once. She cried for 2 hours, sat on the kitchen floor with her knees pulled up, mascara running like a horror movie, telling me I was breaking her heart. I never asked again. My dad, Frank, came home from work that day, saw her on the floor, looked at me, and said, "What did you do?" I was 12. I asked a question. But I learned my lesson fast. Silence was safety. Asking questions was treason. So I shut my mouth, and I kept it shut for 14 years. Not because I didn't care, because caring made my mother cry, and her tears were weapons she used like a surgeon uses a scalpel. Precise, devastating, every single time. I put myself through East Carolina University, 4 years of scholarships, part-time lab work, and enough ramen noodles to stock a disaster relief shelter. Clinical laboratory science. The kind of degree where you spend your days running blood panels and genetic screenings for people who need answers about their own bodies. Graduation day. My mother didn't come. She was helping Tyler move into his new house, a house my parents helped him buy, by the way. His house was 40 minutes away. My ceremony was 2 o'clock on a Saturday, and she chose to hold a moving box instead of watching her daughter walk across that stage. My dad came alone. Frank drove 90 minutes in his work truck. He sat in the last row with a $12 sao bouquet from the gas station, carnations wrapped in green plastic, the kind you buy when you forgot it was someone's birthday. I saw him clap when they called my name. That's the image I keep. My dad in steel-toed boots, sitting behind 300 strangers, holding grocery store flowers like they were roses from a Manhattan florist. That man showed up. Every time. Even when nobody else did. I got hired at Mercer Valley Regional Hospital, starting salary $68,000. I processed diagnostic tests, hematology, genetic screenings, tumor markers. I confirm other people's worst fears in triplicate, and I do it with steady hands and a calm voice because that's what the job requires. By 28, I owned a house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, $145,000. Self-financed. No help from Linda. No help from Nana Ruth. No help from anyone with the last name Townsend. Here's the part that still messes with my head. I process DNA samples 5 days a week, paternity tests, kinship panels, prenatal screenings. I've told strangers that their children aren't biologically theirs. I've watched marriages dissolve on the other side of a lab report. But I never ran my own test, never even considered it, because I already knew the answer. I was adopted. End of story. Except it wasn't. Every family has a throne. In the Townsend family, Nana Ruth built hers out of 40 acres and Sunday dinners. Ruth Townsend is 78 years old. She's been a member of Milfield Baptist Church since 1972 and its women's ministry chair since 1998. She owns 40 acres of farmland on the north side of Route 7, land worth about $350,000. And she runs Sunday lunch at her farmhouse like a 4-star general runs formation. Attendance is not optional. Every Sunday at 1 o'clock, the family gathers around her 12-seat oak table. You sit where she tells you. You eat what she serves. You say grace when she nods at you. And you do not, under any circumstances, question Nana Ruth. That was the rule. And for 26 years, I followed it like a scared kid. 6 months. Before the wedding, Nana Ruth called a family dinner to announce her estate plan. I sat at the far end, between Tyler's wife Brooke and an empty chair nobody claimed. Tyler would receive 15 acres. Megan, David and Lorraine's daughter, Nana Ruth's other grandchild, would receive 10 acres. The remaining 15 acres would go to the church building fund. My name was not mentioned, not once. I raised my hand, not dramatic, just a small lift, like I was asking permission in a classroom. Nana Ruth, what about me? She looked at me over her reading glasses, patient, almost kind, and she said, "The land stays in the bloodline, sweetheart. You understand?" 10 people at that table. Nobody said a word. I nodded, said, "Thank you for dinner." Drove home. Sat in my car in the driveway for 11 minutes before I went inside. I didn't understand then. But the bloodline she was protecting? I was already in it. Uncle David was different. David Townsend is Frank's younger brother, 50 years old, a carpenter who runs a one-man shop out of a converted barn on Oakdale Road. He builds custom shelving, kitchen cabinets, rocking chairs. Quiet man, thick hands. The kind of guy who says more with a nod than most people say in a whole paragraph. He's the one who showed up every single time. When I was 8, he gave me a birthday present nobody else remembered to buy. A small, silver locket on a thin chain. Inside, the letter A was engraved in tiny, careful script. "That A is for you," he said. "Nobody else." My mother watched him hand it to me. She didn't say thank you. She pressed her lips together and turned back to the stove like she'd just swallowed something sour. David came to my science fair in 7th grade, drove 40 minutes. He came to my college graduation, sat 3 rows behind Frank, wearing a clean flannel and boots that still had sawdust on them. He texted me the morning I started at Mercer. "Valley. Proud of you, Addie, always." His wife, Lorraine, was harder to read. She was warm enough, brought casseroles to every potluck, hugged me at holidays. But sometimes I'd catch her watching me. Not with hostility. More like she was measuring something. Comparing distances. Looking at my face and then looking away too quickly, the way you do when you've almost said something you shouldn't. I wore that locket every day under my scrubs, against my collarbone where nobody could see it. 22 years. I thought it was a gift from a kind uncle who treated me better than the rest of them did. I was right about the kind part. I was dead wrong about the uncle part. But I wouldn't find that out for another 2 decades. And when I did, it came from a drunk woman at a wedding who'd finally had enough of keeping secrets that weren't hers. To keep January. 3 months before the wedding, Frank collapsed at the warehouse where he'd managed shipping logistics for 19 years. Mild stroke. Right side went weak. They called an ambulance at 10:14 a.m. I was at work. Same hospital. I heard his name over the intercom. Townsend Frank, incoming ER. My coffee cup hit the counter before the announcement finished. I ran downstairs. Scrubs, badge, the whole thing. I knew every nurse on that floor. I reached his room in under 4 minutes. My mother arrived 40 minutes later, coat half buttoned, purse hanging off one arm. She looked at me standing by Frank's bed, and the first thing she said was not, "How is he?" It was not, "Thank God you were here." She turned to the charge nurse and said, "She's not next of kin, she's adopted. I make the medical decisions." 11 words. The nurse looked at me. I stepped back into the hallway. I didn't argue. I swallowed it the way I'd been swallowing things for 26 years, with a tight jaw and an empty driveway. Frank recovered. He needed rehab, a blood pressure adjustment, and someone close by to monitor his medication. I live 8 minutes from the hospital. I work in the building, but my mother chose Tyler. Tyler, who lives 2 hours south in Fayetteville. Tyler, who visits maybe twice a month. I didn't argue that time either. I just went home that night and sat at my kitchen table across from my boyfriend Marcus. Marcus is 32, civil engineer, the steadiest man I've ever known. He looked at me for a long time, and then he said something I'd never considered in 26 years of being told I was adopted. "Babe, have you ever actually seen your adoption papers?" I opened my mouth to answer. Then I closed it. No, I hadn't. Not once. I just believed. Because that's what you do when you're told something your whole life. You trust it. You build your identity around it. You don't question the story because questioning feels like betrayal. April. Megan Townsend's wedding to Jake Holloway. Megan is David and Lorraine's daughter. 25. Sweet girl. I like Megan. Always have. She's the one cousin who never made me feel like a footnote. The ceremony was at Milfield Baptist, Nana Ruth's church, obviously, and the reception was at a barn venue on Garrett Road. 180 guests, string lights, a country band, the whole beautiful, expensive, small-town production. My mother called me the Tuesday before, not to ask how I was doing, not to check if I needed a ride. She called to assign me a seat. "You're at table 9 with the cousins." Table 9, across the room from the family tables, between Jake's college roommate and his grandmother's neighbor from Raleigh. That's where she put me. Tyler sat at table 1 with Linda, Frank, Nana Ruth, David, and Lorraine, and the bloodline table, I told Marcus. He set his fork down and looked at me for a long time. "We don't have to go." "I'm going for Megan," I said, "not for them." Saturday came. I wore a navy dress I'd bought on sale at Nordstrom Rack, $27. I clasped the silver locket around my neck. Marcus drove. We arrived at the barn at 5:15 p.m. Fairy lights, lavender centerpieces, the smell of bourbon and fresh-cut wood. 180 people who all knew each other's business. Nana Ruth saw me first, nodded once, no smile. David saw me second. Came over, hugged me, held on a beat too long. I felt his hand press against my back, right between my shoulder blades. The way someone holds on when they know something you don't. Lorraine watched from the bar. She was already on her second glass. The reception moved the way small-town weddings do, slow at first, then louder after the toasts. Tyler gave a speech, stood up at table 1, tapped his glass, and said something about Townsend's and blood running deep. "This family," he said. "We stick together." Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. The band played, people danced, cake was cut, and Lorraine kept drinking. By 9 o'clock, Lorraine had switched from champagne to bourbon. I watched her across the room, 48 years old, hair pinned up, mascara starting to blur. She laughed too loud at something Jake's mother said. She hugged Megan twice in 10 minutes, both times wiping her eyes. Then she excused herself and walked toward the restroom. Her path took her past table 9, past me. She stopped. I looked up. She was standing close enough that I could smell the bourbon in her perfume. Something floral, something heavy. She looked at my face, then at the locket, then back at my face. David always did have a soft spot for you. She said it quietly, half smile, eyes glassy. Across the room, David saw her standing at my table. I watched his face change. The color left it like someone had pulled a plug. My mother saw it too. She set her glass down and started walking toward us. But Lorraine wasn't done. She leaned closer. Her breath was warm. Her voice was barely above a whisper. And she said, the 7 words that ended 26 years of silence. You know, you look exactly like Uncle David, right? I laughed. Automatic response. People said that sometimes. No, honey. Lorraine shook her head, slow, deliberate. Exactly like him. The jaw, the eyes, that little dimple on the left side, she pointed at the locket. He never gave Megan anything like that, not once. My mother reached us, grabbed Lorraine's elbow. She's had too much to drink. Ignore her. Come on, Lorraine. Lorraine let herself be pulled away. But she looked over her shoulder at me one last time, and her eyes weren't drunk anymore. They were clear. Sad. Like she'd just set down something she'd been carrying for years. Marcus leaned over. You okay? I wasn't. But I nodded. We left. At 10. The drive home was 22 minutes. I stared out the window the entire time. Streetlights, cornfields, dark houses with porch lights on. And in the passenger side mirror, my own face staring back at me. The jaw, the eyes, the dimple. Marcus broke the silence at the railroad crossing on Palmer Street. You're thinking about what she said. I'm a lab scientist, Marcus. I solve problems with evidence. I paused, and I just realized I've never looked at my own. At home, I kicked off my heels at the front door, hung the navy dress on the bathroom hook, sat on the bed in a t-shirt, opened my laptop, Ancestry DNA kit, $99, saliva collection, results in 7 to 10 business days. I hit purchase at 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday night in April. I'd processed 600 DNA tests that year. It took a drunk woman at a wedding to make me run my own. Monday. The box arrived faster than I expected. Small, white, a barcode sticker on the side. It sat on my kitchen counter like a grenade with the pin still in. Marcus was at work. I stood, alone in my kitchen at 6:30 a.m., coffee going cold, staring at a cardboard box that weighed less than a pound. I'd handled thousands of sample kits at the hospital, opened them, labeled them, processed them, filed them. This was the same thing. Same science, same procedure, different stakes. I did the swab at the kitchen sink. 60 seconds. Dropped it. In the mailbox before work. Blue metal door. Click. Gone. At the hospital, I clocked in at 7:15, normal shift. Processed 19 samples before lunch. 3 of them were paternity panels. I handled them the same way I always do. Gloves, protocol, detachment. But when I pulled the 3rd one from the centrifuge, I stopped. Held it up to the fluorescent. Light. Somebody's blood. Somebody's answer. Somebody's life about to change. One of these could be mine, I whispered. Nobody heard me. 7 to 10 days. The countdown started. Day 3. My mother called me. That alone was unusual. But this call started with, "Hey, sweetheart. Just wanted to hear your voice." I held the phone away from my ear and looked at the screen. "I'm fine, Mom. What's going on?" "Nothing. Just thinking about you," Her voice was too light, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed in the car, day 4. My brother texted, "Heads up, Mom's acting weird. She cleaned out the hall closet this morning. Top shelf. Even pulled down the old shoe boxes." I read that text 3 times. The hall closet, top shelf, shoe boxes. Day 5. Nana Ruth called. This had happened exactly twice in my adult life. Once to tell me Frank was in the hospital, once to tell me what time to arrive for Christmas dinner. Now she was calling to invite me to Sunday lunch. "It's been too long, dear. We'd love to." "See you." I said I'd be there. Hung up, sat on my porch with Marcus and laid it all out. Linda cleaning out closets she hasn't touched in years. Nana Ruth suddenly warm and inviting. Both of them starting this the same week I sent a DNA sample in the mail. Marcus rubbed his jaw. Either they're genuinely trying or they know something's coming. Lorraine told Linda what she said at the wedding, and now they're circling. Day 6. My phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. Not Linda, not Nana Ruth. The DNA company. "Your results are ready." Monday, 6:42 a.m. Kitchen table, coffee untouched. Laptop open. I logged in, clicked View Results. The page loaded in segments. Ethnicity estimate. First, then ancestry composition. Then the part that mattered. Ethnicity, 98.7% Northern European. Consistent with the Townsend family tree. I stared at that number. If I was adopted, if I came from another family entirely, why did my DNA match their ethnic background so precisely? Coincidence exists, but I'm a lab scientist. I don't trust coincidence. I trust data. I clicked DNA relatives, and the floor dropped out from under me. David Townsend, parent. 50% shared DNA. Ruth Townsend, grandparent. 25% shared DNA. Tyler Townsend, half-sibling. 23.8% shared DNA. I read it again. Then a third time because my training tells me to verify before I react. Parent, not uncle, not cousin, parent. David Townsend is my biological father. I wasn't adopted. I was never adopted. They told me I was adopted for 26 years. And it was a lie. The whole thing. The gratitude. The second-class status. The exclusion from the estate. The hall closet door. All of it built on a lie. And then Lorraine's voice came back clear as a church bell on Sunday morning. "You look exactly like Uncle David, right?" She was right. She'd always been right. I closed the laptop, set my hands flat on the table, breathed. 4 minutes. I counted. The coffee went cold. The refrigerator hummed. A cardinal hit the kitchen window and flew away. Then I called my supervisor. "I won't be in today." I opened the laptop again because there was one more match I hadn't recognized. Sophie Keller, half-sibling, 24.1% shared DNA. I didn't know any Sophie Keller. I'd never heard the name. But the DNA said she and I shared a father. One question answered. 2 new ones I wasn't ready for. I spent 2 hours on the DNA platform, cross-referencing Sophie Keller, 27 years old. Listed location, Brumpton, North Carolina, 45 minutes southeast of Milfield. She shared 50% DNA with David Townsend, same as me. That meant David didn't just father one secret child, he fathered 2, with 2 different women, hidden for decades. I sent Sophie a message through the platform, kept it simple. "Hi, Sophie. I think we might be related. I'd like to talk if you're open to it." She responded in 47 minutes. I've been waiting for this message my whole life. We talked on the phone for 90 minutes. Sophie's voice was quiet. Careful. She chose her words the way I choose. Mine, like someone who's been trained to hold things in. Her mother, Janine Keller, always told her that her father was a man who left before you were born. Sophie grew up in Brumpton with Janine and a stepdad. Tom Keller, who married Janine when Sophie was 3. Tom and Janine divorced when Sophie was 10. Tom still sends birthday cards, still calls her his daughter. Sophie took a DNA test 2 years ago, searching for her biological father. No matches then. The databases were smaller. But when I submitted mine, the algorithm connected us. "So David is your father too," Sophie said. "Not a question." "Yes, and nobody told you either." "No, they told me I was adopted instead." Long pause. Then Sophie said something that sat in my chest like a brick. One affair I could almost understand. 2 children by 2 different women hidden for decades? That's not a mistake, Adeline. That's a system. She was right, and the system had architects. Tuesday afternoon. My mother works at the flower shop from noon to 5. Frank was home resting, in the recliner with a blood pressure cuff on his arm and a crossword on his lap. I drove to my parents' house, parked in the driveway behind Frank's truck, went inside. Frank looked up from his puzzle. "Addie, wasn't expecting you." "Hey, Dad. I need to grab something. A form at work needs a copy of my adoption paperwork. Medical records thing." Frank held my gaze for 3 seconds longer than normal. "Ask your mother. She handles the papers." "She's at work. I'll just check the closet. Won't take long." He didn't stop me. He didn't follow either. He went back to his crossword. But I could feel him listening, the way you listen when you know the next room is about to get very quiet. I went to the master bedroom, opened the hall closet, top shelf, 2 shoe boxes, a stack of Christmas cards held together with a rubber band, and behind them, pushed to the back corner, a manila envelope. Thick. The corners were yellowed. The flap was sealed with packing tape that had gone brittle with age. I pulled it down, sat on the edge of the bed, peeled the tape. No adoption. Papers. Nothing from any agency. No court filings, no placement documents. Instead, a birth certificate, state of North Carolina. Name, Adeline Marie Townsend. Mother, Linda Beckett, Townsend. Father, blank. And beneath it, a single sheet of paper. Handwritten. Blue ink, careful cursive. Dated July 1996. I was 4 months old. It said, "Linda, this is the story we tell. She is adopted. We found her through the church network. No one questions the church. Do not let David near her in public. Ruth." I read it twice. My hands were steady, lab hands. But my heart was running a sprint. I photographed the letter, photographed the birth certificate, placed the envelope back exactly where I'd found it, walked out. Frank looked up from the recliner. "Find what you needed?" "Yeah, Dad, I did." I sat in my car for 6 minutes before starting the engine. Then, I called Marcus. I found it. My voice was flat, professional. The same voice I use when I call a doctor with an abnormal result. There are no adoption papers. There never were. My birth certificate lists Linda as my mother. Father is blank. And there's a letter from Nana Ruth, handwritten, 1996, telling Linda what story to tell. She designed the entire thing. Called Sophie that night. I found proof, physical proof. This goes deeper than either of us thought. How deep? Your father's mother wrote instructions for the cover-up, dated 1996. She told my mother to use the church as a front. Sophie exhaled, long and slow. "Take your time, Adeline. I've waited 27 years. A few more days won't break me." Before I went to bed, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, pulled the locket out from under my shirt. The chain was warm from my skin. The little engraved A caught the light. Not a gift from an uncle. A gift from a father who couldn't say the word. I had the DNA. I had the letter. Now I needed the confession. Wednesday. I drove to David's shop alone. Marcus waited in the parking lot of the hardware store 2 blocks away, close enough if I needed him, far enough to let me do this on my own terms. David was sanding a walnut tabletop when I walked in, sawdust on his forearms, radio playing low. He looked up and smiled, the way he always does. Warm, immediate, like I was the best part of his afternoon. "Addie, what brings you?" I set the DNA printout on the workbench, right on top of the sawdust. His smile faded slowly, the way stain darkens wood, not all at once, but grain by grain until the original color is gone. He looked at the paper, looked at me, looked at the paper again. His hands stopped moving. "How long have you known?" I asked. He sat down on his work stool, took off his safety glasses, rubbed his eyes with the back of his wrist. 30 seconds of silence. The sander kept running. He reached over and switched it off. "Since the day you were born." The shop was quiet, just the two of us and 30 years of silence between us. He told me, Linda and him. "It happened when Frank was deployed, 6 months at Fort Bragg. David was 20. Linda was 24. He came over to help with the gutters, then the porch light, then the kitchen faucet. Then it was one time. Stupid. Wrong. I knew it was. Wrong. Linda found out she was pregnant a month later. Nana Ruth found out a month after that. And Nana Ruth made the decision. She told David that if he claimed me, he'd lose the family. All of it. The shop, the land, everything. He reached toward the locket at my neck. His fingers stopped an inch short. "I gave you that because I couldn't give you my name." His eyes were red. His voice cracked. "I wanted to tell you every single day, Addie. Every single day." I let him sit with that. Then I said what I came to say. "You had 10,000 days, David. You chose silence on all of them." He flinched. Didn't argue. "Do you know who Sophie Keller is?" His face collapsed. He knew. 3 years after you were born, I met a woman in Brumpton, Janine. It lasted 4 months. He pressed his palms against his knees. "I don't have an excuse, Addie. I don't have a reason that makes sense. She had your baby. And you left?" "Janine didn't want me to stay. She said she'd handle it. She married a man named Tom a few years later. I sent money when I could. Cash, no paper trail. Stopped when Sophie was about 12 and Lorraine started checking the bank statements." I leaned against the workbench, sawdust under my fingers, the smell of walnut oil and wood stain, and the quiet, desperate mathematics of a man who fathered 2 children he never claimed. "You want me to keep another secret, David? For you?" He looked at me, eyes wet. "Lorraine will leave me. You should have thought about that 27 years ago. Please, I'll tell her myself. Give me time. I'll give you until Sunday." Sunday came. David didn't tell Lorraine, so I made my own plan. I showed up at Nana Ruth's at 1 p.m. sharp, casserole in hand, smile in place. My mother caught me in the kitchen before I sat down, pulled me past the pantry into the hallway near the back door where nobody could hear us over the clatter of serving spoons. Her voice was a hiss, low and sharp, like steam escaping a pipe. "What did you tell Lorraine at the wedding?" "Lorraine told me something, Mom, not the other way around." "Whatever. She was drunk. She doesn't know what she's talking about." I kept my voice level, the same tone I use when I call a physician with a critical lab value. No emotion, just data. I took a DNA test. The color drained from her face. Not slowly, all at once, like someone had flipped a switch behind her skin. "Adeline, honey, we need to talk about this privately, as a family. You have no idea what this will do." "I know what you did." She switched tactics. Tears came fast, practiced. The exact same tears she'd used when I was 12 and asked about my birth parents. "I was 24, Adeline. I was scared. I was alone. Your father was deployed. David was... He was just there. Please, please, don't destroy everything. I pulled my wrist free, gently, the way you remove a blood pressure cuff, controlled, deliberate, final. You had 26 years to tell the truth, Mom. I'm giving you until next Sunday. She didn't use those 7 days to confess. She used them to build a wall, called Tyler, told him I was going through something and making up stories, called Nana Ruth, called Lorraine, poisoned the well before I could draw water from it. The woman who'd spent 26 years lying about my identity was now lying about my sanity. So when Sunday came, I didn't wait for her to speak. I stood up after the peach cobbler, pulled out the folder, and I read the letter aloud. Every word, in front of everyone. 10 faces around that oak table. My mother crying. My grandmother stone-faced. My brother white as the tablecloth. David with his head down. And then the front door opened. Sophie walked in. Brown hair pulled back. Left side dimple. Same jaw as mine. Same jaw as David's. She set her DNA results next to mine, and I said, "This is Sophie. She's 27. She's from Brumpton, and she's David's daughter." My Aunt Lorraine stood up, looked at David. Her voice was flat, worse than a scream. A scream has heat. This was ice. "How many more are there?" David didn't answer. He couldn't. My mother made one last attempt. "This girl could be anyone." But the DNA didn't lie. 2 tests. Same result. Parent. 50%. My grandmother lifted her chin. "If you walk out that door, Adeline, don't come back. You are out of this family." I turned to face her. 78 years old, 40 acres, chairwoman of the women's ministry, builder of Sunday dinners and generational lies. I was never in this family, Nana Ruth. You made sure of that. I unclasped the locket from my neck, 22 years of wearing it against my skin, set it on the table next to the manila envelope, next to the DNA printouts, next to the peach cobbler that nobody was going to eat. Then I turned and walked out. Didn't look back. Here's what happened after. Frank moved out within 2 weeks, filed for separation in May. 33 years of marriage undone by a letter he never should have had to find. David moved into a room above his woodshop, 40 feet of particle board ceiling and a cot that creaks every time he turns over. Lorraine filed for divorce in June. Nana Ruth stepped down from the women's ministry. The whispers started at Milfield Baptist within the week, and the Sunday dinners? They don't happen anymore. The biscuits go unmade. The pot roast stays in the freezer. The oak table just sits there. Sophie and I meet every 2 weeks now. We have the same laugh, a short exhale through the nose, followed by a shake of the head. David's laugh, apparently. Marcus proposed in July. Kitchen table. No fancy restaurant, just a ring and a question and the steadiest man I've ever known. Looking at me like I was enough, I said yes. I registered a corrected birth certificate. Father line? Previously blank. Now it reads, Frank Townsend. Because a father is the man who shows up with gas station carnations and holds your hand with his weak side. I didn't destroy 3 families. A lie did. I just turned on the light. If you've ever been told you weren't enough, that you should. Be grateful for scraps. Drop a comment. Tell me your story. That's what the Payback Vault is for. Hit like if you believe the truth is worth more than a comfortable lie. Subscribe and tap the bell. The next story might be the one that reminds you that you're not alone. I'll see you in the next one.